Okay, um, so we begin. Welcome. It's parshat A, and parshat A begins with these words. We know that it's Moshe Rabbeinu was talking to the Jewish people. These are the 36 days before he passed away, from the beginning of Chodesh Shvat until the 7th Zayin Adar when he passed away. And he starts and he's saying, Re'ei anochi noten lefnechem. Behold, I set before you today a blessing and the opposite. And he has them all gathered together on the east of the Jordan River. Before they enter the Holy Land, they're just about to enter. Moshe is going to say goodbye. Yoshua will lead them in. And he says to them, if the blessing, you will receive the blessing if you heed the commandments of God. And if not, if you turn away from Hashem, then it's the opposite. And he gives them very strong instructions about not serving other gods. And he says if they do serve Hashem, they're going to receive tremendous blessings, and they should be careful because it's very easy to turn away and to follow other gods. We say Visartem vavadetem elokim acherim. Now, sarta means to turn. Now, you just turn and you're becoming an idol worshiper. So we're told it's like, for example, if you are walking in a forest and you go off the main road, the deeper you get in, the harder it is to get back out. So you never know where you're going to end up. So a person has to be very careful of, like he says, okay, just this, and he cuts off corners. So we should know that just cutting off corners means to turn. This turning could lead you to a bad place. A person doesn't just wake up one morning and find himself serving idols. It starts with a small step. Everything begins with a good step, with a little step, for the good and for the bad. There was every day, and it's always a slow process. Like a person says, okay, you see, he goes to a Torah class every week, and he says, oh, just this week I won't go. And, that might lead to, okay, you could take a few more steps in the wrong direction. And we've seen many people having their children go off the way, their grandchildren, assimilation. So there was a story told about a young boy who went off the way. And, it's like, well, I guess it works both directions, because it was a student of the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe of the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, and he had a son who went off the way, and he became very passionate about horse riding. So he would, loved horses, he raised horses, he rode horses. And when this disciple of the Tzemach Tzedek came to the Rebbe and he said, what could I do to bring my son back? Please help me. He said to him, bring him along with you the next time you come to visit me. So he asked his son to come along with him, and this young man wasn't too interested. So he finally agreed. He said, listen, if I could go with you on horseback and stay on horseback throughout the visit, then I'm fine. So they came to the Tzemach Tzedek on horseback, and the Rebbe said to him, tell me, which is better, a slow horse or a fast horse? So he said, of course, a fast horse is better. So he says, why is a fast horse so much better than a slow one? So he said, very patiently, he explained that a fast horse can take you from place to place with such speed that you reach your destination much faster. So the Rebbe said, okay, I hear you, but what if the fast horse is going in the wrong direction? So because he's going so fast, it's a disadvantage, because he ends up much further in the wrong direction than he would on a slow horse. On a slow horse, he wouldn't get so far away. So the young man said, that's true. But as soon as you realize that you're going the wrong direction, you turn around and you go back in the right direction and you're much faster. So the Rebbe looked at him and he said, yes, as soon as you realize that you're going in the wrong direction, just as soon as you realize, then you can go back really quickly. And this young boy understood what the Rebbe was saying. And ultimately, on his fast horse, he came back, yes. So at that time, idol worship was such a strong, powerful ta'ava, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination was like, it was impossible for them to resist it. It was like so strong. And that's why the Holy Temple was destroyed. Today, it's so hard for us to understand, like, why idol worship is so appealing. Like, it's not something we do today. And why is that? Because the Talmud tells us that being that it was such a strong desire to worship idols that they asked Hashem, please take away this temptation from the world, and Hashem agreed. But today we have other temptations. Today they say it's betza kesev, it's like the worshiping money, the overwhelming desire for success. A person says, I'll make more money. And sometimes it blinds them and they do, he says, it was a joke about the guy who said, my wife and I got divorced for religious reasons. She worships money and I don't have any. So anyway, this desire for wealth sometimes can stray a person away from the path of the Torah. It's like, he can't stand by this. Somebody will promise him a lot of money, and it's hard to stand by the temptation. In truth, when we learned the week before, 2 weeks ago, actually, we said, Shema Yisrael, v'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, with all your heart, with your evil inclination, and your godly soul. And then it says, b'chol me'odecha. Me'odecha means with all your possessions. And we say it every day. So that's like with all your might. But with all your might means your possessions. Why? Because a person invests a lot of effort and energy into making money. He plans it and he works on it and he thinks all night about it, doesn't sleep at night. How am I going to make a living? How am I going to make a few more in a sense? So the money is very dear to him, and it's like a necessary possession. So there's nothing greater than taking from money that I worked so hard to earn and using it to serve God. The person will say, like, I worked for it. Why should I give it away? And here he gives away the money that he worked. It's like, it's part of him. It's like, I worked for it. I sweat and toil. And so this is, and in this week's portion, we find that Hashem tells us about giving charity. Actually, it's today's portion. Today's portion is about the tithes, giving ma'asrot, and giving charity. And it says that that you set aside 10% of a maser. So then, when the Jews came into Israel, they were all farmers, like they were all raising whatever it was in their fields. So they had to give a tenth of what grew to the Kohanim, and then there was a tithe for the Leviim, and then they gave. We learned all about how much they gave, like 2% to the Kohen, and then 10% of what was left to the Levi, and then they gave ani for the poor, or if it was Maser Sheni for the first, second, fourth, and fifth years. They gave it was Maser Sheni where they went to Yerushalayim, and there they were able to buy whatever it was and eat in Jerusalem. In the third and the sixth year, so that's for the poor. So basically a 10%. Now today, it doesn't apply out of Israel. Okay? Out of Israel, you do give from the money that you make. from your salary. Yeah, everybody gives a 10% of the salary that they make. And it says aser to aser. And Rashi tells us, why does it say twice? Because aser can be read asher, like asher, you become rich. Aser to aser, aser shetit asher. You give maaser, you give a tithe, and you become rich. So if you give charity, you give and get, it says, right? You give charity, so you will receive. And basically, you're not meant to do the mitzvahs for the sake of reward. But when it comes to charity, Hashem says, test me on this, and I'll show you. You give charity with the even with the intention of becoming wealthy, and God will fulfill His promise. Now, some people think 10% is a lot, like we're happy to give, but from every $100 I'm going to give $10. That like seems too much. So there was once a rabbi who was speaking at a bunch of salespeople, and he wanted to motivate them to give charity. So he said to them, "How much commission do you make?" So one said 25%, one said 40%, one said 50%, even one made 60%. So he says, you get the best commission rate from God because He gives you 90% commission. All He wants is 10%. You give Him 10%, you get that 90% commission. And when you think of it that way, and the Medrash tells us a story of a wealthy man that had a big field, and he produced like 1,000 tons of produce each year. So he would take from 1,000, he would take 100, okay, and he was very wealthy. Now he laid on his deathbed, and he called his sons for final instructions before he passed away, and he said to them, "Listen, this field that I'm leaving you produces 1,000 tons every year. Just make sure you continue giving the tithes of 100 tons, just as I did throughout my life." And then he passed away. So after the father passed away, one of the sons who inherited the field, he gave like 1,000 tons. He grew 1,000 tons, so he put aside 100 for the maser. And the next year he said, "Wow, that's a lot to give away." Even people gave him some good advice. They said maybe you should give a little less. So he gave less. And what happened was that the next year, the field produced a lot less, right? And he thought he was saving money, but then he found out that this led him to a big, big loss. So he comes to the shul, and the rabbi prepares a kiddush in his honor, and he says, "Rabbi, my family is in financial ruin, and you're making a kiddush where you're laughing at me?" He said, "God forbid, we're celebrating. You used to be a very wealthy man, and now you've become a Levi, because you used to keep 90% and give 10%. Now Hashem is keeping 90%, and you're only getting 10. You're like the Levi. See what it feels like?" So we have a choice. Either we give 10% and keep 90%, or the other way around. And this is what... That's right. And this is the way it begins. Behold, I set before you today a blessing, and the opposite. So you have a choice. You could choose to receive the blessing, or Chalila, the other way around. So the choice is ours. We should choose the right path. So that is one thing. Now I want to speak about the Re'eh. What is the difference between to see and to hear? And to see is something that is, you don't see all the details. When you look, you see the whole. So it's like from the whole to the little details. When you hear the details, and you put together the picture. It's the other way around. So we have here Re'eh, meaning that Hashem is showing us. It's from above. He's giving us this gift, and to listen, Lishmoa, Shema Yisrael, is our part, the work that we do from our part, that we lift everything up to Hashem. And this is basically why Hashem created us. He created us before the Shemot were created before the world was created. He gave us the world as a vessel, as a way of bringing down of the godliness into this world. And it says that Hashem made the world yesh me'ayin, meaning material out of nothing. And he wants us to take this yesh, this material, and make it into nothing, to prove that this world is just an illusion. And basically everything is God. Hashem u'shmo echad. Hashem and his name is all one. So he doesn't reveal himself totally because he's so condensed. In other words, the world, the physical world could not exist if Hashem would reveal himself in full. Okay, now the Torah tells us, look, there are two signs. Now, being that he spoke about not worshiping idols and everything, and a Jew has to be pure, so he says it's very important what we eat. We're not allowed to eat food that is not kosher. And it says you are what you eat, because the food that you eat becomes, it gets digested, becomes part of your blood, and adam hu hanefesh, your blood is what gives you life. So you become what you eat. And so if you eat animals that don't have the right signs, these are animals that don't have good, in other words, it says, let's see what these signs are. It has to chew its cuds and have cloven hooves. So it says mafreset parsha, means that it's separated, the hoof is separated, but it has to be shosat shesa, that it's like two nails. It's like two hooves sort of divided. So if a person eats any type of food, it could be animal, vegetable, mineral, becomes part of his flesh and blood. So a person fulfills the purpose of its creation because it's incorporated in the person. It's like mazon, food, it becomes part of you. So there's a certain aspect of man that's similar to the mineral, to the vegetable, to the animal. And then there are those components that make a man a midaber, like, he's unique because he can think, he can speak, he's a midaber. That's the highest level. So just as the mineral, the vegetable, and the animal parts of the world, they reach their maximum potential when they're incorporated into a human being, so it is with a man as well. Those aspects that resemble the mineral, the vegetables, and the animals are not a man's purpose. His purpose lies in his unique quality as a mitaber, a person who can think and speak. And so the proper destiny of his other facets is that they become encompassed within the attribute of midaber. It becomes part of him. So the what is the purpose of a physical man? The true purpose of a physical man, that God gave him a mission, and he accomplishes this mission. He's God's emissary, and he fulfills the mission when he becomes sort of similar to him, like he follows what Hashem does. In other words, B'Tselem Elokim, everybody's created B'Tselem Elokim, but a Jew is more than that. He is given a special neshama. So the purpose of the mineral, vegetable, and animal in the man, he has to elevate it. It has to become incorporated within this person, and it's accomplished when he uses them for the purpose for which he was brought into existence. So the food that he eats gives him the strength so that he can learn Torah, and everything he eats, or everything he puts into his mouth, will give him the strength to use it to serve Hashem. Or he has a choice, like we said, he can use it for his animalistic inclinations, and that will turn a person away from his spirituality. So either he could make it holy, or he can do the opposite. It's up to him. So if, in order to know whether a person is serving Hashem properly and elevating the animal within him, and bringing bringing the light of Hashem into the world, so the Torah gives us two signs, and he says man's natural tendency is to serve Hashem either with love or with kindness. In other words, love and kindness, or awe and severity. In other words, it means either a chesed or gvura. Love and kindness is chesed. which means, out of the goodness of your heart, or because of fear or severity. Okay. So when a man is able to serve with both attributes, that shows that he's serving him not by force of habit, but out of true devotion, because everybody is born with a certain trait. Some people are more chesed and some people are more gvura. And it's very difficult for a person to be both. But if he works at it, then you know that, he's devoted because he's serving Hashem, not out of routine, that's what comes easy to him, but he is using both kinds of service. So this true service in elevating the animal within the man is indicated by the cloven hooves, because we say you see, you have two sides. You have the aspect of love and kindness on one side, and you have awe and severity on the other side. So they're divided equally. Now, since the man is involved with the darkness of the physical world, he's never sure that he's serving Hashem in the proper way. Maybe I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So even when he sees that the hooves are cloven, he can't rely just on that alone. Therefore, it's necessary that he behave like an animal chewing its cuds. What does it mean, you chew your cuds? You think about it, you review it, the food goes down, it comes back up. In other words, you say sleep on it. When you tell a person, don't jump to conclusions. You have to inspect what you're doing and think about it again and again and be sure that what you're doing is the proper thing. So in a more general sense, these signs are teaching us that before you do anything, you have to be sure that you're not doing it for your own physical pleasure, but you're doing it for a spiritual reason. So you have to check repeatedly and be sure that everything I'm doing for the sake of Hashem. Because many times people do things because they have pleasure out of it. Chesed, people like to give. They don't even know if the person needs. They give, it felt so good that I gave. What does this person really need? That's the difference between chesed and rachamim. It says that Abraham was chesed, Yitzchak was gvura, and Yaakov was tiferet, which is rachamim. Rachamim means I'm not doing it for myself, for my own pleasure. I'm doing it because I want to. This is what he needs. I don't really want to help him, but he really needs it, so I'm going out of my way to help him out of rachamim. That's the difference. It's not just giving. That's my nature. I love giving. We have more pleasure from giving than the person has from getting. So a person has to think twice. Is he doing it because that's his nature, or is he doing it because this is what Hashem wants him to do? So this is what the kosher signs mean. And we know that when a person, whatever he eats, becomes part of him, and he receives these attributes of from a kosher animal, he becomes a more refined person, and it helps him make the right decisions. The first Rebbe of Chabad said that one should live with the times. What does it mean, living with the times? He means living with the current portion of the week. So many times he said you should live with the times and experience in your own life the specific teachings of this Torah portion. So every time we read a portion, we think, how is it relevant to me? So Parshas Re'eh, we are now, this Shabbat is Shabbat Mivarchim. We're going to bless the new month. We're going to Chodesh Elul. Elul is the month where, in preparation for Rosh Hashanah, we have to start, Chodesh HaSlichot, we have to start making our inventory, when a person has a business. So at the end of the year, he says, okay, what went well? I'm going to keep selling. The stuff that's sitting on the shelf that nobody buys, forget it. And you start making your inventory to see what I have to renew, what I have to get rid of. And this is what a person does with himself. He has to start making his decisions, like what was good this year, what I did good, I'll continue. What I didn't do good, I have to get rid of. And I have to, prepare myself and standing on Rosh Hashanah before Hashem and I want to receive the blessings, not the opposite. Re'eh anochi noten lifnechem. So he says, see, I put before you this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing if you listen to the commandments of Hashem, and Chalila the other way around if you don't listen to the commandments of Hashem. So the Ibn Ezra says that although Moshe was speaking to the entire Jewish people, he said Re'eh, which is singular. Re'eh is you, every person. In other words, that every person has to listen what Moshe is saying as if he was speaking to him individually on a personal basis, okay? So he meant me, he didn't mean everyone. You know, when you say everyone, so okay, can hide behind. So as we enter the Hebrew month of Elul, we focus on the spiritual preparation for the Rosh Hashanah, for the high holidays, for Yom Kippur, and we have to confront all those stumbling blocks that prevent us from progressing, because there are many things that we intended to do, but I'm talking about spiritually and personally. It doesn't matter if, you can say, oh, since I came from France, okay, or wherever I came from, I didn't have time for this, but that's physical. We're talking about the spiritual. Basically, if you work on this, on the spiritual side and the personal side, then the materialistic also comes through. So we evaluate our thoughts, our actions, our lifestyles, and we have to make changes. So it says, Re'eh, you have to see yourself clearly, not through the lens of past, but how do we look now? How do I look now? I have to look in the mirror and see, where am I now? Ayeka, how I want to see myself in the year to come. Do I want to be the same old, or do I want to move closer? What am I striving to become? So living with the times means also to use this present opportunity to make life changes. Now is the time for serious spiritual work. So why does the first word of the portion, Re'eh, begin with the word see, Re'eh? What, are the blessings visible? Or the curses visible? You don't see it. Sometimes they seem obvious, but you never know, because sometimes what seems to us a curse could turn out to be the blessing in disguise. So the word see is sort of a higher kind of vision. It's not just a physical vision, because what I see with my physical eye can be a mistake. Remember, we said you see just a little part. You don't see the whole picture. So seeing means an inner vision or an insight. And the sages taught us that a person who's smart, a wise person, Ezu chacham haro'et hanolad, you see what will result. You see what's born. You see what is going to be the consequence of my actions. If I do this, what will happen? If I do this, what will happen? That's a smart person. So, and we say the first letter of the word blessing in Hebrew is bracha, and a curse is kuf, klala. Now, if you take both letters together, kuf is 100 and beis is 2. You have 102. The word emunah is 102. So emunah helps us see the hidden good in our lives. And that's why the Talmud tells us to bless both the good and the bad, because everything that God does ultimately will be seen as good. Maybe now we don't see it, but we know that it definitely is good. So that's one lesson from the parsha. Another lesson from Parshas Re'eh, the fact that it begins with the word Re'eh, it says Re'eh Anochi. The word Anochi, Ani, or Anochi sounds like it's that ego. In other words, see the ego that I placed within you today. It can be a blessing or a curse, because the Baal Shem Tov says that an ego can stand between a person and Hashem. When a person thinks of himself too highly, it's like he's lifting his head, and it says Hashem cannot live with somebody who's egoistical. So the ego could come between a relationship between Hashem and the person. It could be a curse, or the ego could be a curse. If it's channeled in the right way, it could be a tool to reach our goal. If you use it for the good, the ego can become a blessing. Be very proud of being Jewish, proud of who I am, knowing that Hashem gave me certain powers that someone else doesn't have. And this could push me in the right direction and do what I have to do. So every word of the Torah is intentional and it's significant. So the fact that it says, I put before you this day a blessing and a curse, Moshe said these words thousands of years ago, and we're reading it today, and it's talking to me now. It has so much relevance. Think about all the choices that can bring me to a blessing or the opposite. How do I choose to see myself, and what circumstances can reveal a blessing or conceal it? So what you see today is up to you. So it's our choice again to live the Torah life, living with the times, meaning learning with the Torah's teaching, living with the Torah's teachings, and doing what the Torah says. So to make it relevant, how can you choose to see your life with a positive eye just for today? What are the practical steps you could take to achieve this goal is something we have to think about, okay? In other words, we have to make the choice. What can I do today that will bring me closer to my goal? The second thing is to know that all the mitzvot produce good. Even if I can't perceive it now, I don't see it now. You know, sometimes in the winter, you see the trees look dead. There's no leaves on them. They look like they're gone. And yet they're just getting ready to bloom. In the spring, they bloom again. So sometimes you think, oh, it's really dark. Yeah. I'm dead. And yet, you see that things will blossom. And of course, reading the Torah portion is from the whole parshat. There's always something that we can incorporate in our lives, meaning living with the times. I think I told you the story about the two brothers who must have told it to you, that they decided they were leaving Europe and going to America to make money. Do you remember that story? And they were going to America. They stayed there for 3 years, and they made money. And they said, okay, let's split it up, and we will go home, and to our families. And what happened was that he found out that they had a ticket. They were ready to leave, and his father passed away, one of them. So he said, he's going to stay and sit shiva. So he was sitting shiva, and his friend came to him with some papers, and he said, "Can you please sign?" So, he trusted his friend, and so he signed whatever he asked him to sign. And little did he know that he was clearing out his bank account, and he took all the money, and he left him with zero. He's like back to square one. Here, 3 years he made money. He says, "How can I go home without any money? I have to do something. I have to stay. I'll stay a little bit more." And he stayed another 2 years, and he worked. He was very upset. Like, how did Hashem do this to me? All the bad things happening. You're sitting shiva, and then all your money is taken away. That's like really dark, right? And yet he stayed another 2 years, and he was able to become an American citizen. Because if you live 5 years in the States, you can become a citizen. So he went back home, and then the war broke out. And many people tried to leave Europe, and they weren't all successful. And he had an American citizenship, so he was able to leave with his family, and his friend didn't make it, the one who stole his money. So here we see how sometimes that this koshi, this dark thing that happens to you is what saved you, actually. This was what saved you and helped you get out and save your family. So sometimes what we see is not the total picture. You always have to know that there's a reason for something behind it, and trust Hashem that there's always something good that's going to happen. So I leave you with this message. And stopping the shidduch.